Coming up on Tekzilla, ZOMG OS 10 Lion in the App Store is freaking folks out. Loyd's back. If you're building a PC, he's got lots of advice. We got a good way to speed up an old PC for nothing. Sending massive files, a little help keeping your SSD running fast. And Veronica, she's going to get her WinZip on. So grab your laptop and bring in the cap, Starbuck, because Tekzilla starts now. This episode of Tekzilla is brought to you by Carbonite, Netflix, and West Toast. I'm Patrick Norton.
I'm Veronica Belmont.
Welcome to Tekzilla, hands-on reviews of the latest tech and how to make the most out of the gear you've already got.
Whether you're a beginner or tech support for your friends and family, if you've got a question about tech or the movies that Spielberg and J.J. Abrams cribbed for Super 8, and that would be most of them from the 80s, we've got an answer for you.
That's a really scary thought, because there were some amazing movies in the 80s, a lot of bad movies in the 80s. Welcome to Scruffy and Slightly Broken Host Day. You are suffering the trauma of a broken toe.
Yeah, Twitter's been mad at me because I've been tweeting too many TMI tweets about my zombie toe, but I crushed my toe under a credenza, or rather a cameraman crushed my toe. No one here, by the way. And my toe is kind of smushed, and I've been going to the doctor.
So it hasn't actually been broken?
It's not broken, and I'm not... This is getting into TMI.
There's no necrophilia, there's no like infection or anything like that.
That's not what necrophilia means.
Oh, I was thinking of the other, necrosis.
Yes.
Sorry. Don't look that up on the
Wow, okay. So my toe, I'm not losing my toenail, which I was gonna get to next. But it's still a little sore and it's not looking so hot. So I was sending pictures to my doctor over email.
You didn't accidentally tweet one of those pictures, did you?
No, there were no accidental twit pics of zombie toe, thank goodness, so don't worry.
Zombie toe.
But everyone was like, TMI, TMI. I'm like, no, it would be TMI if I posted the twit pic.
Yes.
That would be TMI.
The broken toe that has been seen cannot be unseen. So other than that, how is life after E3?
Oh, good, good. Yeah, E3 was really great. I got to see some great games. Spent most of the time actually in our studio off-site for core shoots, so I wasn't on the convention floor too much, but I did get to walk around a little bit.
Any surprises, games you're sitting here going like, it's only 79 more days before it's released?
Like I mentioned, I'm still really excited about Skyrim, Elder Scrolls V. Modern Warfare 3 looked great. Battlefield 3 looked really great. And actually the game of the show, which I didn't get to see unfortunately, was BioShock Infinite, which I love the BioShock series though, so I'm really excited about that one too. A lot of great stuff coming out in 2011, 2012. It's going to be a banner year for video games, I would say.
Big year for the video games. I didn't get too much hands-on time with it. I got to say though, Acer's Iconia, it's a 10.1-inch Android tablet, feels really good in hand. Tegra 2 processor, 32 gigabyte micro SD card slot, $479.99 at Costco with 32 gigabytes of RAM. Sadly, there was no Wi-Fi at the Costco, so we couldn't do too much with it other than like play with the interface and open up some apps that were pre-installed on it. Are you feeling good about Android tablets? I'm starting to like some of the ones that are coming out.
Yeah, you know, I liked the Galaxy Tab a little bit. I found some issues with it at first. Just when I got my hands on it, there was some problems with like setting the clock, but it apparently had to do like a factory restore. But I'm still on my iPad 2, of course, which is not an Android tablet, obviously.
Is that running the iOS?
It is, in fact, running the iOS. But hey, in other tablet news, we're told that HP's TouchPad will launch July 1st. Pre-order start on June 19th is running WebOS. Out-of-the-box Flash support, Google Docs, Facebook, and are we reading this right? Angry Birds? Yes, you can't launch anything these days without having built-in Angry Birds support. Still, the WebOS app catalog has a long way to go before it gets to Android or iOS proportions, of course. It'll be $499 for the 16 gigabyte model and $599.99 for the 32 gigabyte version. $600 basically.
Yeah, apparently.
$599.99. Really? Come on, just make it $600. That's what everyone's going to say anyways.
$600.
$600.
But it sounds like less if you take that nickel off the price.
It just seems like more numbers to me. It sounds like more to me in a way. Because math is not my strong point. Anyway.
Register ran a nice story last week about iOS 5's Wi-Fi Sync, the quote, new tool for wirelessly syncing iTunes, iPhone libraries over iTunes or iTunes libraries. And check out these icons down here. Apparently it is a complete ripoff of Greg Hughes' Wi-Fi Sync, which was rejected by the official App Store, and then he took it to the Cydia store, sold it for $9.99 at Pop, where it sold over 50,000 copies. The picture you're looking at right there is the side-by-side comparison on the register of the logos for Wi-Fi Sync. Hughes' logo is the blue one on the left. Apple's is the one on the right. The University of Birmingham student told the Register, "Obviously, I was fairly shocked. I'd been selling my app with that name and icon for at least a year. Apple knew that as I'd submitted it to them, so it was surprising to see that." Apparently, he talked to the engineers.
Yeah.
They asked for his CV, his
Ooh, yeah.
and then, it's just the near matching icon that just kills me. Where
Yeah, I'm not one to give Apple the benefit of the doubt because they tend to rip off a lot of stuff, like we were talking about the apps from that they've now integrated into the next version of iOS 5,
Right.
et cetera, et cetera. But syncing over Wi-Fi, I mean, there's only so
Right.
many ways you can show that in an icon form.
Yeah, but
I mean,
don't
it's
know.
a pretty basic way of showing an icon like that.
I know. It's just the fact that they rejected
If
his
they rejected
app
that and had
then-
talked to him, yes, I can definitely see that point of view, but I also want to kind of put it out there
Okay.
that feasibly it could have been a mistake. There's only so many ways to show certain things, but anyway. But what's not in the sad category today is the abundance of riches if you're building or buying a new PC this fall. Our buddy Loyd Case tweeted last week, "Is Sandy Bridge too rich for your blood? If AMD, socket AM3 Plus and wait for Bulldozer." If so, I think he meant. Bulldozer, not quite as good as Death Monster as a code name for a CPU, but we'll take it.
Yeah, it's funny. Lloyd's going to be on later in the show. We mentioned in the open, he's going to be basically answering PC questions, lots of GPU questions. Everybody wants
Nice.
a new GPU.
Yes, and we've had about 3 zillion questions about OS X Lion, downloading it from the App Store, what happened to Mac before OS X, what you do if you have a slow internet connection and lots of machines to update. So we thought we'd summarize what we know about OS X Lion by answering this email from Matt in Kentucky. "Hi all, I have sort of a conundrum. I own both a MacBook and a Mac Mini, and I'm looking to upgrade them to Lion when the time comes. I understand that I need only to purchase one copy of Lion for $29.99, and I'd be able to upgrade both Macs, right?" So yes, that is correct, at least if A, you've already upgraded to the latest version of Snow Leopard 10.6.6 or later, with the App Store installed of course, and B, all those machines have Core 2 Duo, not Core Duo, Core i3, Core i5, Core i7, or Xeon processors, 2 gigabytes of RAM, and D, you're willing to tie all those Macs into the same Apple ID. Was that only 3? That might have been the C category.
That would be the C.
That would be C.
It's kind of funny, right? Because a separate Apple ID probably means paying, as near as I can tell, it means paying the $30 fee over again. We're not sure what happens if you change the Apple ID after you install Lion. For example, my wife usually has a different Apple ID loaded into her computer than I do for my computer, right? This is going to be really interesting, by the way, for Revision 3, any other company or school with a lot of Macs to support. We're not really sure how Apple plans to support sysadmins that want to roll out Lion across dozens or hundreds of users, but the idea of tying in a corporate operating system upgrade to an Apple account sounds painful at best.
Yeah, Matt then goes on, "My problem is simple. I have the fastest residential internet AT&T offers in my area. The average download speeds is around 125 kilobits per second. I calculated that if I max out my download speed and limited traffic to just one Mac at a time, it'd take me 90 hours per system to download the upgrade."
Ow.
My question again is this: do you imagine that there would be a physical copy of Lion or a way to copy the Lion download to removable media? I can't justify cutting the rest of my family off from the internet for so long. From your fan who never misses an episode, Matt in Kentucky. Thanks, Matt. Our math puts it closer to 70 hours, but yeah, you're talking about a 3 or 4 day download. Know anyone with a faster connection within driving distance? You might haul one of your machines there or see if somebody can make you a bootable disk, which wouldn't be a bad idea.
Yeah, it's interesting. As of our shoot today, you will not be able to buy OS X Lion on disk anywhere, at least not legally. You will, however, be able to basically install media or a DVD, or if I'm reading it right, on a USB stick after you've downloaded it. That'll help Matt or anybody with a slow DSL connection at home and 3 or 4 machines to upgrade, or anybody who doesn't want to download the same upgrade over and over, clogging the internets and making pain for everyone. I'm hoping Apple makes it a bit simpler than it is right now. You basically have to dig down to the install ESD.dmg image file, create your own install disk. The webpage you're looking at right now is Egg Freckles' webpage. He's the person who found the Burning a Lion boot. Basically, he figured out the file storage location in there, and it's like, you purchase and download Lion, you right click on Mac OS X Lion in the installer, you show package contents, you look through the contents folder, you copy install ESD.dmg to another folder, you launch the disk utility, you burn it, yada yada yada. The thing is though, Apple could break this install or offer a disk for sale between now and when OS X Lion goes on sale in July, because Apple has occasionally been known to change their mind about stuff.
Right, and of course, as Cult of Mac points out, even if you have that install disk, you need a connection to the internet to finish the install. This upgrade is really about Apple extending more control over the platform, a la iOS. I'm really hoping that Apple has some nifty plans for making this easier to manage. Revision 3 sysadmin just laughed when we told him about the tie-in to Apple IDs. Boy.
Yeah.
When your sysadmin starts laughing, you know there's going to be a problem.
You know there's going to be pain and suffering involved.
Pain and suffering. Coming up next, we got more of your questions and a talk with Loyd Case, but up first, it's time to thank one of our sponsors.
With more than 20 million members, including me and Robert and pretty much everybody else that works on Tekzilla, Netflix is the world's largest subscription service. They instantly stream TV episodes and movies right to your home. If you're a member, you can instantly watch thousands of titles on a vast array of devices. We're talking about streaming TV episodes and movies to your Xbox 360, the PS3, the Nintendo Wii, Apple TV, home theater PCs. It's amazing, because if you're a Netflix Unlimited member, you can instantly watch as many movies as you want, anytime you want, for one low monthly price. You got an internet connection, you've got movies, no late fees, no due dates. You got TV shows too. You can watch an entire season. Now, if you're not a Netflix member, you should be. And as a new member, because you're a Tekzilla viewer, you can get a free trial membership. Go to netflix.com/Tekzilla and sign up now. And be sure to use netflix.com/Tekzilla so that they know that we sent you.
All right, James is looking to get his charity on and writes, I hope you can offer some advice on sorting out a couple of old laptops. My friends and I are helping to support a family living in Mozambique. They provide aid to the surrounding villages and recently asked if we had any old laptops we would be willing to donate. Turns out we do, but I need to wipe all the systems of any old data and speed them up as much as possible. Both laptops have decent software, such as Microsoft Office, that I want to keep, but I've lost the install disks. Is there a way to selectively wipe the hard drives, and would this help speed them up at all? I would be open to wiping the drives completely and buying the necessary software to help bring out a little more speed. James. First of all, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Good on ya.
That is really cool. If speed's what your primary concern, you got several choices. You can manage what you got, selectively uninstall applications you don't want, as well as use tools like msconfig to adjust what loads and what doesn't load on the machine. You basically want to strip anything out you don't need on a Windows install. You could reinstall Windows and buy the software the family might need. That can be a good route if they absolutely positively have to have, say, Microsoft Office or any other applications that are available off the shelf. Third option, the one we're really leaning towards, is that you go open source. Linux operating system like Ubuntu. Ubuntu is really an amazing operating system. It's free, it's available anywhere there's the internet. It's very, very popular in Africa. And then you load OpenOffice, which has, you know, it's an office suite. I used it professionally for like 3 years, and actually I pretty much use it here at revision 3. And it'll run more happily with less memory or slower CPU, so it should feel faster once, you know, compared to the Windows OS that's probably bloated up and crudded a little bit on your machine. Bit rot is a frightening thing with Windows. Yeah. And hey, this also means you can wipe the system out before you send it in case it gets disappeared somewhere in between your house and their house, which always sucks and occasionally happens, because I can't occasionally ship stuff from here to the other side of California without it disappearing. So, you know, if you're paranoid about any security issues, I always recommend swapping in a new hard drive or wiping it. Plus, a new hard drive would be faster. Plus, it might be a little more reliable if that hard drive is 2 or 3 years old. Because remember, you know, you're sending this machine an awfully long way. Probably, you know, just make sure everything's good to go first.
Conceivably not great airports, you know. So I mean, maybe you can hand deliver them.
That'd be nice.
Yeah,
take a trip to Africa. Antoine in Chicago writes in, hello, is there a way to send large files like 30 gigabytes or more by email? Antoine, most email servers have restrictions on the file size that you can attach to email. Sending or receiving 30 gigs would be far beyond any cap we've seen, which is usually like 10 or 20 or 30 megabytes.
Yeah, I couldn't even, I tried to send like a 20 megabyte file the other day, and it was like, nope. It's like, really?
This attachment is too large to attach.
Come on.
Or, you know.
No, it sent, but then it wasn't received on the other end.
Because at the other end, they think you're sending a mail bomb or something like that. You send it Dropbox, about a zillion other websites make it pretty easy to send or share files up to 2 gigabytes for free, because most browsers have a cap. Is my understanding, most browsers have a cap on the file size you can upload through the browser. For 30 gigabytes, you're going to need to spend money, probably use some kind of dedicated app, and then that either sends a link or you're going to send the link to the person you want to download. Something to think about, like even if you're thinking about Dropbox or send this file or something like that, most residential internet accounts, it's going to take a long time to upgrade upload 30 gigabytes. Like 4 days if you've got 768 kilobits per second up, double that to 1.5 megabytes up, and you're still looking at like 46 hours just to upload the file.
Do you feel like we talk a lot more about this recently, about how long it takes to upload? I think with all this cloud stuff that's been going on, this influx of cloud things.
Suddenly everybody noticed that their internet
like, oh
connection
wait,
is
it takes a really long time to upload 40 gigabytes of files to the cloud. And you're like, yeah, no kidding.
And that's just it, right? You're paying for like 16 megabits down, 30 megabits down. Even if you're paying for 6 megabits down, you're oftentimes only getting less than a megabit up. 768 kilobits per second up is common. 1.5 megabits per second is common. Anything above that is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Ridiculously large for a home account. Send this file looks really cool. They offer unlimited file sizes, but it's kind of funny because I was looking through and I'm like, oh, okay, where is it? Look at the product and the comparison, and we're in here and compare all plans. And what gets me though, right? So free plan, 2 gigabyte max, then you sign up for the $5 a month plan. You've got unlimited file sizes, but you only get 500 megabytes of monthly transfer. For $10 a month or $100 a year, you get 10 gigabytes a month of transfer, 25 gig a month for $19.95 a month. So you haven't even, you're already spending $20 and you technically don't have enough bandwidth to download, to have your friends download your file once. So I'm wondering if you might want to seed a torrent, which doesn't really work if you want to keep the files private, or basically start a web server just to host this stuff and to distribute it.
Just send a thumb drive. No, wait, you can fit 30 gigabytes on a thumb drive.
Oh yeah. You just need one of the bigger thumb drives.
Just send an external hard drive.
Okay.
Yeah. Wait, where have you seen a 30 gigabyte thumb drive?
30 gigabytes?
Yeah,
Oh,
I want to
boy.
see this 30
Costco,
gigabyte thumb
20
drive.
bucks. 32 gigabyte thumb drive?
Get out of here.
Yeah.
Really?
Hold on.
Gigabytes?
Gigabytes.
No way.
Yeah, I have actually 64 gigabyte thumb drives are expensive.
Is it really a thumb drive or is it just a really small SSD?
No, it's really a thumb drive.
All right.
You know what? I will bring one in for you next week.
All right,
I'm
fine.
not giving it to you. I'm keeping it for myself.
Can I test it for an extended?
Actually, we're going to be talking about it on
Okay.
Wednesday. I picked up a 1.5 terabyte external drive in its little 2.5-inch drive enclosure with USB 2.0 and 3.0, $109.
That is not a thumb drive.
I know, but that's
Okay.
that's a terabyte
All right,
and a half.
I know I'm going to get tons of emails.
3
Like,
terabyte
how
drives
have you
are
never
selling for
seen
like
a 32
$150.
gigabyte thumb drive before, Veronica? That's what. So, I'm sorry. I'm not making fun of you. I promise. Hey, there's more Tekzilla coming right up. But before we do that, it's time to thank one of our sponsors.
Computer disasters, they eventually happen to everyone. Theft, computer crash, virus, natural disaster, and there's been a lot of those lately. But if you are running Carbonite Online Backup before your disaster, you got no need to worry because your files will be backed up automatically and safely off-site, as in someplace else, and it's super easy to get them back. Plus, you get anytime, anywhere access to your backed up files from any computer or on your smartphone or iPad with a free Carbonite application. With Carbonite, unlimited backup for your PC or Mac is cheap. $59 a year, less than $5 a month for peace of mind, people. But if you use the offer code Tekzilla to start your free 15-day Carbonite trial, you'll get 2 months free if you decide to buy. All the details are at Carbonite.com, and remember, use the offer code Tekzilla to get 2 months free with your purchase.
All right, it looks like it's time for another website we just can't get enough of. A website that we just can't stay away from because it's too useful, too funny, or just too darn irresistible. And this week's pick is Camera Deals. This one comes to us right from Roger Chang, our resident camera buff. Now, I'll say right off the bat that this is not the most user-friendly website on the planet, and it really works best if you already know what brand of camera or lens you're looking for. Let's say, for example, that we're looking for a new Canon. You want to just click the Canon link up on the top, and it will bring up the most recent deals from Canon cameras and gear. Now, it may look a little overwhelming at first as you scroll down because there's all these different little blog posts that have deals from Canon. We've got a Rebel XS, we've got a S95 for $330, we've got a T3i. These are all great, but these deals run out, so you want to make sure that you're still looking at deals that are
Still
working,
available.
that are still available. So that's probably just going to be the last few blog entries. The easiest way to stay on top of this info is by subscribing to the RSS feeds. Clicking the RSS Special Interest tab up at the top will select a specific feed that you want to add to your Google Reader. So if you're shopping for a new lens or a certain brand, we click it right here, you'll only get updates for that, which I think is best for people who really, really know what they want. The super hot deals are also right up at the top here. Like we've got a free Red Giant Magic Bullet production bundle. I actually met with the guys at Red Giant. They're awesome and they make great, great software. I definitely recommend taking the RSS route for this site, but if you want to do some browsing right away, head on over to cameradeals.1001noisycameras.com today. One of the more interesting website names I think we've come across in a while.
Whenever there's a PC question that has us scratching our heads, we turn to the man we know, well, if he doesn't have the answer, he'll find Mr. Loyd Case. Welcome back to the show, Loyd.
Good to be here.
You're looking healthier than ever.
Thanks.
If you lost like 100 pounds?
No. I've lost 35 pounds.
So, and we should point out, because you look good. You look like Tony Robbins good. You have adopted an active lifestyle and a complete...
I'm not doing infomercials, though.
I know.
Okay.
But you do tech questions, which is more important to us. I just want to point out that you're actually an example of somebody who has radically changed, basically, their eating and started exercising, and you look really healthy, dude. I just want to say that.
But I just want to let everybody know I haven't given up on gaming.
Diet and exercise will not cause you to leave your games behind. This is actually an important message for us. We should probably just jump into the first question before I get too ridiculous.
Okay.
Andrew says, what does Loyd think of the new Gigabyte Z68 Mobo with the integrated SSD? Is 20 gigabytes enough, or would it be better to get a standalone SSD? And we should probably point out that it's not a true SSD. It's basically a giant chunk of cache memory.
Well, yeah. What they did was they use a technology called MSATA, which embeds the flash memory on the motherboard in a little. I believe, if I remember correctly, it's in a separate little PC board, but it's right out on the motherboard.
Yeah, I've seen pictures of it.
Right.
It looks like a matchbook cover.
And I'm not actually sure you can use it as a distinct hard drive, but assuming you could, you probably wouldn't want to. It's just not big enough. You can make a Windows boot drive and then you'd be done.
It's kind of funny. It's one of those products that reeks of being like a year too late or a year too early, because it's basically caching stuff for your hard drive.
Yeah, what it does is it takes advantage of what Intel calls their smart response technology. That's the brand name for it. And it uses that 20 gigabytes as a big cache for a rotating hard drive. And it does speed things up, and it is useful. It's not like, you remember the little memory stick thing that Microsoft had? I forget what it was called. This is actually useful. It works pretty well. I've used a regular 20 gigabyte flash.
I think you spent 6 months finding a thumb drive that would actually run.
Well, they all do now, but it still doesn't. Anyways, I've done this with a regular SATA SSD, and it's pretty neat. It works well. That way you don't spend $900 for a 1 terabyte SATA drive, right?
This is a good thing. So it's a nice in between. If you don't have a big enough SATA drive for all your stuff, it's a nice hack. If you actually can afford a gigantic SSD drive, you probably don't need this motherboard.
Right, and the processors that go on these boards are good. So here.
It's a scary thought. Joseph writes in, I want to put an SSD drive into my laptop, as most laptops have only one drive slot, and I want to put in a big drive, but I don't want to pay a fortune. Is there a solution for me? I've seen things where you use the CD drive as a hard drive slot. Perhaps there is a hybrid drive where the first 64 gigs is SSD and can be used for the operating system, and the rest, 256 gigabytes or more, is a regular hard drive. Are there any solutions you can think of? Joseph.
Seagate has one. It's called the Momentus XT.
Will that actually fit in like a 9mm drive slot?
I believe so. I believe they're small enough. The thing about those is that you only have 4 gigabytes of flash memory cache. But for most users, that's enough. And the reviews I've read from some respectable sources like AnonTech say that it actually works pretty well and it speeds things up.
It's really funny because people are like, I need everything to be on the SSD drive, but the reality is most of your data doesn't. You don't need your MP3s. You don't need your DVD rips.
Well, it's a nice thing in terms of speeding up performance. What it's not going to give you is the sort of reliability of a pure solid state device. If you drop it, it's still as fragile as any hard drive. So you don't want to drop it when it's spinning. I mean, when it's turned off, the heads are locked down, and it's pretty good. But.
Performance, not data integrity.
Right.
Actually, that didn't probably sound right to the people at CK. Muppets on Caffeine wanted to ask, please do a segment on home energy and how it is being off the grid for Loyd. Says Muppets on Caffeine.
Well, here's a short take on it. I'm not off the grid.
I was going to say.
I use the grid as a giant storage battery. Right. So what happens is that when I'm making more power than I'm consuming, like on a warm summer day, it pumps power back into the grid, and I get credit for that. It comes off my power bill.
Overall, it's kind of funny because you've done some extensive writing about this back at Extreme Tech. And the kind of rule of thumb was you were selling energy in the summer.
Right.
You were barely making any energy in the winter.
Right. That's generally true.
Because the sun was so low on the horizon, and the solar panels are bolted to the roof of the house. You can't really angle them to catch the sun.
Yeah.
This is kind of paying for itself. Would you do it again?
I'd do it again. I mean, there are exotic things you can do, like you're talking about moving the panels around automatically. Like I think Google does a lot of that kind of stuff. I don't particularly care for that. The panels are cheaper now, which is why it might make more sense to do it now than a couple of years ago. But it is paying for itself, and it, the market value of my house has gone up. My power bill for the entire year, and this is my house with my basement, which you've seen.
It's a good sized house, people.
Right, is $1,200. That's for the entire year.
Do you run AC in the summer?
Yes, I have central air conditioning.
That is impressive. So $1,200 for the entire year with like the 9 PCs in the basement, the giant home theater, the multiple daughters, the AC in the summer. Actually, I want to get solar panels on my house now. Have you ever thought about digging out the backyard and creating a gigantic, storage grid for, a collection of lead acid batteries to keep power in case of,
No,
to go fully off the grid?
No, no, I can't imagine having that many lead acid batteries or anything. There are companies that are starting to sell stuff like that based on lithium-ion batteries, these little packs you can buy. Not little, they're actually physically pretty large.
Yeah, 30 or 100 pounds.
Right, to actually be backup for solar power installations, but those are not cheap at this point.
No, and also, by the way, carrying giant piles of battery into the boonies to create a true off-the-grid solar system is a commitment, not to mention buying the batteries.
Right.
I've toured some people who live like 30 miles from the nearest power line.
And you notice what those guys really have at night
first.
is a diesel generator, not a bunch of batteries.
In a lot of cases, they're just incredibly disciplined about energy usage.
Right.
Like everybody reads about a single lamp at night. iPads instead of giant home theater
LED
displays.
lights everywhere. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. It's amazing how much energy and how fast an incandescent bulb can kill a battery.
Well, I'm still trying to educate my family on the fact that, so we have some halogen central lighting, and then we've got can lights that are all compact fluorescents, and I keep telling them that one bulb from the halogen bulb is equivalent to 14 of those compact fluorescents.
Yeah, I can still hear my mother's voice. So I turn off every room as I leave it, and it drives my wife insane. But I get insane. Like I see a light on another part of the house, and I freak out. Mostly because I can hear my mother's voice about leaving lights on. What CPU is better, AMD's Bulldozer and Intel's Sandy Bridge CPU? Asks Brody.
Well, I think my crystal ball, as I said, is not clear about this. Bulldozer's not out yet. It's going to be out in about a month or so, I believe.
It looks like one of the coolest parts AMD has come out with in quite some time. Yes,
it's a brand new architecture for them. Their first really new architecture in a while. It's got some controversial bits in it, like for example, there's some resource sharing between the cores, kind of like hyper-threading, but better. I mean, in the sense of there's actually more hardware there.
Cool.
But the question is how well it's going to perform. Some early benchmarks have shown that it's really good on some pure math stuff, but that doesn't mean anything in real-world applications. If I have to make a guess now, I think it's probably going to be a better server part than a desktop part, but that's really, don't take my word on it. We'll have to see when the parts come out and get our hands on them.
So basically ask you again in a few weeks.
Right. Now the interesting thing is it's a very modular design, so they're going to have 4, 6, and 8 core versions.
I like the idea of an inexpensive 8-core part.
Yeah.
But I'm cheap, so I've always liked AMD for help keeping some of the neat stuff cheap. It's kind of interesting. Do you think Intel's going to have a major release? Do you think they're like sitting on a release waiting for the day Bulldozer ships to drop
Intel's been very public about it. They haven't been sitting on a release. They're working on their next generation architecture, which is going to be on 32 nanometer and coming out, I think, later this year. They showed examples of that running recently at some press conference they held. And so they have a new architecture coming out, and then they also have, and then of course beyond that they'll have they're talking about going to 14 nanometers by 2014, if that's what I recall correctly. So more transistors and smaller space.
And tri-gates.
Right. And 3D gates, right.
Yeah, 3D gates. Johnny from Davis asks, I'm currently looking for a GPU upgrade, not currently looking to upgrade my other components. I've got an Intel Core Duo E6850 running on a Gigabyte GA motherboard, 6 gigabytes of DDR2 RAM, a GeForce 8800 GTS, displays, sharp 42-inch LCD TV, and a 19-inch Dell LCD. My only request is that the card be good to throw in a rig I plan on building in the next year. i7 or better, be able to run Rift with everything turned up, displaying on the 42-inch at 1080p, and not lag during raids. Could you recommend a few cards to me in the $200 to $275 range? And maybe, well, I guess cost is no object. Also, because, a card that's going to last 2.5 years isn't enough. Is there any way to run a game on my 42-inch flat panel and watch a movie on the 19-inch flat panel without causing lag?
Let's answer the second question first.
Okay.
He's not going to be able to do that with a Core 2 Duo.
Right.
The fact that he's trying to run a video and play a game on that processor just won't happen.
What if he's just trying to display Rift on both screens simultaneously?
Well, I mean, if he's cloning it, it doesn't matter.
Right.
That should work fine.
Okay.
The 1080p, it's not an aggressive resolution, right? So he can go with something like, an example would be an NVIDIA GTX 560 Ti. That's actually cheaper than his price range. He can go a little higher to like a 570. If he wants to use an AMD GPU, a 6870 is be sort of the entry level I recommend if he wants to keep it around for a while. Radeon HD 6970 would probably be better for the long term. On the other hand, those 6970s are really big cards, so his case has to be the right size for it.
And I got to add, like, this is one of those situations, wait as long as you can to buy that card because new parts come out, prices keep going down. And
right, we're just at that summer transition. There's going to be nothing really new coming out probably for 3 or 4 months, but then they'll start rolling out their next gen parts in the winter.
yeah, it's just, there's always like, I hear that Core i7 build in the background and it's like a $300 card now is going to be like a $150 card next year.
Right, but those GTX 560 Ti's or the Radeon HD 6950s, those are going for about $250 right now.
That's pretty good.
And you'll get pretty good performance for a while because a lot of the game graphics are pretty ratcheted up now with the X11, and you're not going to see a lot more happening probably for a year or so.
That makes me feel a little bit safer about buying a card. Hey, Zeus has a question. Our last question for this one. He says, I currently have 2 GTX 460s and SLI, and I'm running 2 24-inch monitors. I also have an old 19-inch monitor I want to hook up to my computer, but NVIDIA SLI only allows for 2 monitors at once. I would have to disable SLI in order to get the 3 monitors working. Can I buy a 3rd graphics card with the sole purpose of using it just to run the 3rd monitor while keeping SLI enabled? Keep in mind, I only have 2 PCI Express Type 1 slots available on my motherboard, which is an Asus P7P55D-E Pro.
Well, you can't get a regular graphics card to the PCI by 16 slot. It probably won't fit in there. There are a couple of PCI Express by 1 graphics cards. I think Zotac makes one, or made one at least, but it's still available in the market. I checked. There are a few, I think, AMD GPUs that come on by 1s. No performance to speak of, but it'll drive a monitor. So
you want like your Twitter account sitting in the background while you're dual monitor gaming.
That's right.
What do you think about, is it worth buying one of the USB to monitor adapters?
If all you're doing is your desktop, that's fine. The only concern I have is how much of the CPU it might use. The newer ones, I think, are much better in terms of actual CPU usage. When they first came out, they actually kind of consumed some of your CPU cycles.
Interesting. Got to keep the power consumption down. Loyd, awesome information as always. What's coming up from you in the next few weeks?
I've got stuff happening. I just wrote an article, in fact, on calibrating your home theater audio for PC World. Really entry-level article, but the basic stuff. And then I've got laptop reviews of PC World. I'm working on some DSLR stuff for Maximum PC. So all kinds of stuff cooking.
And the website of choice for Mr. Loyd Case?
Well, PCWorld.com, MaximumPC.com. I wrote some fun columns for WillSmithsTested.com site.
And ImprobableInsights.com.
Yep.
Good place to find all the links from Loyd. Awesome stuff as always, Loyd. Hey, you want Loyd to answer your question next month? Do us a favor, email it to Tekzilla@revision3.com with Loyd Case in the subject line.
And thanks to Loyd once again. And we've got more of your emails still to come, but first, it's time to thank one of our sponsors.
WestHost isn't some fly-by-night company. They've been offering premium web hosting since 1998. We're talking about experienced and inexpensive, 19 cents a day. That's affordable, people. But it doesn't mean they skimp on service. WestHost provides free U.S., as in I can understand them on the phone, U.S.-based support available 24/7 by phone, chat, and email. You got an existing site? No problem. WestHost does free website transfers, plus they offer a 60-day money-back guarantee. And you can get an exclusive 25% discount off web hosting just by visiting westhost.com/Tekzilla. To learn what WestHost can do for you and get 25% off, do us a favor, visit westhost.com/Tekzilla.
All right, Miguel sent us this question asking, I'll be buying a new laptop in a few weeks and I would like to put in the 60GB G-Skill Phoenix Pro SSD I use on my desktop into my brand spanking new laptop. Will reformatting my old SSD degrade its performance? And if so, is there a proper way to reformat or erase the data on the SSD so I can install it in my laptop while keeping it nice and fast? Miguel in the Philippines.
Well, you should be able to treat the drive pretty much like any other when you go to reinstall Windows. You take out the drive, you stick it in your laptop, then have Windows do its install thing. And we assume you'll be using Windows 7, so you get that fabulous trim support that'll help your SSD operate at its best. Now, SSDs, by their nature, they're going to degrade with use over time as you start filling up, basically you start filling up the drive, things change in terms of performance. That's why trim support is so important. It helps to ensure level wear on the drive, kind of like rotating tires on a car, and frees up, oh boy, you know what, we've had Anand explain how this works. I don't want to get into it here right now. Early Intel SSDs that were shipped to reviewers like NAND came with a utility called HD Erase, or HDD Erase, to reset the NAND chips on the drive to a factory state. It's from the, if it's the right one, right, it's CMMR, the Center for Magnetic Recording Research, basically gives you the tool you can download on that one. Supposedly it'll make the drive as fast, as responsive as it was when it shipped to the factory. You basically want to erase the drive before you install Windows on it fresh. App is a free download. Many current SSD owners swear by it. Even SSD maker OCZ acknowledges how useful it is for basically making sure your drive operates at its best. They placed a short tutorial. You know, I'm going to so enjoy getting rid of these braces in the worst possible way. But basically, there's a website on OCZ that'll explain how you use it. And when we get Anand back on the show, hopefully sometime in July, we'll be sure to ask him about the proper procedures on refreshing SSDs, keeping them operating at the sort of optimal capacity, and kind of what the sweet spot is if you're thinking about buying an SSD these days.
It's nice to know that you can give them a little refresh.
Refresh.
Nice little refresh.
Well, refresh if you talk about wiping it clean, like paving the earth and starting all over again, but yeah.
Well, it's good to know that the performance can actually be kind of optimized doing that instead of further degrading it.
Yeah, there was a lot of panic, and when the first couple SSD drives came out, people were like, oh my God, they're really fast, and then they get really slow, and then you're doomed. It's like, no. You may need to perform maintenance on it.
They may completely die on you.
It could get stolen.
Or that.
It should operate just as fast later as it does now if you do certain things, like, you know, wipe it and rebuild it every so often, make sure you use trim and Windows 7. Dan wants to ask us.
Forget having a MacBook Air. I'm just going to say, forget having a MacBook Air. I'm just going to run my entire computer off of my 32 gigabyte thumb drive that you're going to give me. Put all my software on there.
I'm not even going near that.
No, just hook it up to a monitor. I'll make a little enclosure.
Buy your own thumb drives.
Stab it in the top.
You're going to be so horrified when I'm like, look, 64 gigabyte thumb drive.
I know. Why do I not know about this? Anyway.
Because you don't spend a lot of time transferring large files around the office by SneakerNet, which is so 21st century. Dan wants to ask us, is WinZip encryption the same thing as using 7-zip passwords for sending a file securely to someone over the email? Dan in Minnesota.
Well, luckily, both can use the AES 256-bit encryption, though 7-zip offers way more file types for unpacking than WinZip. WinZip supports the most recent zip archive spec, supports AES encryption, but many zip utilities support WinZip's 128 and 256-bit encryption. As long as both people have zip utilities that support that encryption, that file should be accessible to anyone with the password. Yeah, because 7-zip also does that 7Z encryption, which has a password-protected format as well. So it does the 256 AES encryption, but then also does a password. But I think you can still see the file names even under that encryption with 7Z. I don't know if it's the same with WinZip or not. Or zip files.
It's pretty, if somebody's cracking into your files at that point, it's because you really ticked somebody off, and you should be using good field craft, like creating fake names for your file, and it just, I joke.
Yeah, but if you encrypt zip files over 7-zip, it should be fine if they just have WinZip at home to unzip that. But WinZip is like $30 to buy for a personal version, but 7-zip is free. So that's nice.
Yeah, it's open source.
Yeah, it's open source. So
because a bunch of people basically didn't want to pay for WinZip, so they wrote their own version of it.
Yeah.
So sorry, I'm
it's a really. What are you looking at over there?
No, I'm on the
pulling
stand.
Up thumb drives, aren't you?
Yes.
Damn it.
Yes, I am. But so far, I've only found the 16 gigabyte thumb drive.
Ha!
Ah, there's a 32 gigabyte thumb drive.
All right, I believe you now.
SanDisk Ultra USB. Next, I'll go to OCZ.
I'm a thumb drive noob. I know. Noob.
By the way, speaking of encryption and us being noobs, we got several responses to TrueCrypt a few shows back asking why we didn't recommend AxCrypt, which looks a little something like this. At least the web page does. Ronald, for example, wrote in, "Hey guys, you just watched episode 222 where you suggested TrueCrypt to encrypt files for the guy looking to encrypt just one file. What about AxCrypt? I use it for some of my files individually. It's probably not as secure as TrueCrypt, but if the guy doesn't want to go through all the hassle of making a TrueCrypt encrypted volume, maybe he can give this one a try. Always love the show." Ronald in Los Angeles, California.
Yes, and Kelly chimed in saying, "I was glad TrueCrypt was mentioned, but there is another program that I have used to encrypt a single file, and that's AxCrypt. It's simple to use. My father and I used it in the past to email sensitive documents, and I still use it to encrypt a file before putting it on Dropbox." Kelly, that is smart. I'm going to start doing that. And finally, Alex writes in, "I was watching the last show and one of your viewers wanted to encrypt a single file. My suggestion is a program I use called AxCrypt. It's really easy to use. I haven't had any problems. You need to remember the password or say goodbye to the data you just encrypted though. You can encrypt with a word or word number, etc., or even a key file." Alex from Carpinteria, California?
Carpinteria. I think
means
so.
Carpenter.
Hey, everybody, thanks for the suggestions. Roger's actually used it in the past, AxCrypt, but he didn't recommend it for our viewer because it's currently Windows only, while TrueCrypt is multi-platform. Basically, it runs on everything. So kind of felt like AxCrypt limits the number of people who can access the encrypted file compared to TrueCrypt. While AxCrypt is great for small files and super easy to use, Roger is also super paranoid. TrueCrypt is much more flexible in terms of user-defined container size. It would actually hide the size of the thing you're sending or storing or saving or securing, and has significantly more out of control, amazing, cool guy, super paranoid, get your tinfoil hat encryption options.
I'm going to use that to encrypt all my files on my new 32 gigabyte thumb drive computer.
Check this out. Hey, look at this. I'm up on Newegg. There are 5 128 gigabyte thumb drives listed and 2 256 gigabyte thumb drives listed.
Them.
So
Go back to that other page.
Which other page?
100. Oh, I'm so wrong. Okay, you're right. You're right already.
These are like USB 3.0 and 2.0, 128 gigabyte drives.
Okay. This is the bad part about doing these live to tape episodes is that I have to be wrong and then it's on the show.
Have you seen my shoes?
No.
Have you seen your shoes?
No.
Who do you think has more fabulous shoes?
My shoes are pretty fabulous, I have to say.
Because I don't spend as much time on Zappos as I do on Newegg. I just go, I buy a new pair of running shoes, and I leave.
What, you say all I do here all day is shoe shop?
Not what I said. What I'm saying is you are more up to date on shoe fashions, and I spend more time looking at ridiculously expensive USB thumb drives.
Well, I should be looking at more ridiculously expensive USB thumb drives.
And I will look for a decent pair of shoes that actually look like an adult should wear them. Got a burning tech question for us, whether it's actually about burning tech or just a very urgent question, we want you to send it in to us. Tekzilla at revision3.com, that's our email address, or you can post it on our Facebook page at facebook.com/Tekzilla.
And of course, we are also on the YouTubes at youtube.com/TechHD and Twitter at Tekzilla, at Robert Heron, at Patrick Norton, and me at Veronica. Thank you guys so much for watching.
I'm Patrick Norton.
I'm Veronica Belmont.
Until next time, you've been watching Tekzilla.
Bye.